various places, again, back to ISU, the Mayflower Room at the Terre Haute House, until finally in 1954, they purchased the Best Theater, which was an old movie house at 25th and Washington, and that's where we've been since. So they searched for many years, and thanks to those people that stuck through it, we're here today, 94 years later. I have to share this. This is my favorite story. We have this big red history book that Jane Hazeldine wrote, and I love sharing this story with everybody that I talk to community theater about. It says in 1953, the building committee was given specific authorization to obtain a 2-acre tract on the southeast corner of the newly opened South 3rd Street at Margaret Avenue. After excessive deliberation, the feasibility of constructing a theater from scratch seemed unattainable. The site was also considered by many too remote and inaccessible. It could have been at 3rd and 41, but that was just too out of the way in 1954. So we've been at 25th and Washington since 1954. We have expanded the building to a warehouse. They did that in the 60s, and then we did a major addition to the building in 1998 that included our new lobby, rehearsal hall, costume loft, and everything. And then we expanded our parking lot 2 years ago. So we're now up to a 20,000 square foot building, which is we're really lucky to have that. A lot of community theaters are working out of old storefronts or don't have a permanent home even today. So we feel very, very fortunate for that. So yeah, we've been doing it for a while, and I'm very fortunate to be involved and lead the organization. One of the things, like I said, that makes us special is that we're 100% volunteers. Our motto is everybody plays a part. So anybody's welcome to walk in that door and get involved, and we love that. We love new people coming in, and we've had people, I can still remember back when we did It's a Wonderful Life. Somebody that it was in their 60s, never had any interest in theater, never acted before, just loved the movie It's a Wonderful Life. Walked in our door, got the part, and was in the show and has been a volunteer since. So we love stories like that. Typically,
keep that in mind then, typically when you choose which plays you're going to do you try to do things that people will recognize and will draw them in? And
absolutely, yeah. When we look at programming, we try to offer a variety of things. So we're trying to offer programs and shows that speak to different demographics of our community. But yeah, we always want to do a well-known show that's going to bring people in and get them interested in theater.
Yeah. Noticing, I live over there on the east side and watched that construction of the new parking lot, which is beautiful. Mm-hmm. I imagine that was a huge expense as well. Maybe a lot of fundraising and things that had to go into that. I don't know how, but that made me think you must be really committed to that site, and that location is really working well for you if you're going to put that much additional time and effort into it.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much stuck there now. Yeah, that the parking lot, we started talking about that right as I came on the board, so it's been a long time discussion. Of course, we're in a unique situation because we're in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and that we had houses within 20 feet of the theater up until a few years ago, until we purchased them and tore them down for the parking lot. But yeah, that was a several $100,000 project that we fundraised for and worked for years to be able to do that, because it was the number one complaint from our patrons. We went from 23 parking spots to 112. So now everybody has accessible parking. It's easy to get in the parking lot. You don't have to worry about parking on the street and blocking somebody's driveway and getting towed, which happened. I drove some patrons home one night because they couldn't find their car. They couldn't figure out where it was. So yeah, it's really a great improvement.
So what has happened as a result of this pandemic? How has it affected the community theater?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you'll probably hear the same theme from other performing arts organizations that talk here, is the COVID-19 pandemic has really hit performing arts organizations hard. We are one of the most risky activities So we have to take it careful. When this happened in March, we still had 3 of our 7 shows that we had planned for the season. And we ended up canceling all 3. One of them was 10 days away from performances. They were ready to go. They had the light cue set. They had done the technical rehearsals. The set was done. Actually, the set is still halfway on stage because we haven't torn it down. We've started. Um, they were ready to go, and we couldn't do that. I mean, it just came so fast that we had no choice but to shut down. So the governor's order came in, and we originally had postponed that and one other show while canceling one, but then it became clear that this is going to last a lot longer than any of us anticipated. So we canceled 3 of our shows last season. We were able to hold our annual awards night a few weeks ago. Actually, it's been almost a month now. But we did that outdoors at Fairbanks Park, and that was a nice opportunity to use an outdoor venue. But we decided last week we've actually already canceled our first show of the season, this upcoming season. So we are closed at least through the end of September at this point, and we're going to keep watching and hope to reopen at some point. But anytime you're talking about putting on a show, you're talking about getting actors in close proximity with each other. And especially with a musical where they're singing, there's increased risk of transmission and things like that. And we determined there was just no way to keep our volunteers safe. Even if we brought our patrons in with masks and spaced them out seating wise and took all of these precautions, we just couldn't risk the health and the safety of our volunteers who we rely on. And I've talked with several arts organizations across the country, and somebody put it very eloquently, but very to the point, that no one's health or life is worth any show, how great it is. So we're kind of in a holding pattern now. We're ready to open. I mean, we're all eager to get back to it, but we're not going to do so until it's safe.
Right, because it's not just obviously about that day and that performance. It's all of those weeks and weeks and practices leading up to it and all the interaction and exposure to each other, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And when does the season at the theater officially start and end? What's a season cycle look like?
So typically our season is basically August through May. We audition usually around the beginning of August. For a patron, it looks more like September through May, because our first show typically goes up in September. We usually do 5 main stage shows on in our auditorium of 357, and then 2 what we call Oakley stage in our Oakley rehearsal hall that seats about 70. It's a flexible space, kind of a black box thing. So yeah, we're usually right about now getting ready for the next season and gearing up and doing marketing materials, and there's always a big rush of getting tickets on sale and all this, and now we're just kind of holding. We do have a couple of things that are in the works. They're not public yet, but I'll share them with you here today. We're working on a Broadway in the Park concert at Fairbanks Park, or a local park wherever we can find a venue. We're trying to just put together a concert, hopefully in September, of solo Broadway numbers, about an hour-long concert that'll be free and open to the public. Something we can do to keep involved and give the community something to do safely. So we're still finalizing plans for that, but hopefully we'll be able to announce something soon. And then we're looking into a variety of virtual options, something similar to what we're doing today, of doing a play via Zoom. Specifically, we're looking at something like a radio play or something like that could be completely rehearsed and directed from the comfort of somebody's home, and then we'll invite everybody to watch. And again, if we offer that, that would likely be free to the public.
So you could do, even for your lead up to the Broadway, do you think you'll use a format like this for communicating with your members and performers and kind of practicing and that kind of thing?
Yeah, we will. We are trying to limit any rehearsal as much as possible. So, I mean, everybody's used to Zoom now, it seems like, but we've been really utilizing it with whether board meetings or anything, and we're looking at how that will work for rehearsing a play. And I've talked to colleagues that have used it, and they've said it's been surprisingly successful, that you can get everybody together and read and really give some direction and things to actors, and it's been more useful than they thought. It'll be interesting to see when this is all over, hopefully sooner rather than later, um, how we might be able to continue to use this platform and reduce people's need to actually come to the theater, but be able to rehearse virtually. It's a really an interesting concept, and I think it's something that we'll probably continue to use.
Mm-hmm. I could see how the plays all have to be modified to an extent, though you're
Right.
able to be together performing on stage, and so you really have to change up the game completely.
Right, and yeah, that's what we're looking for, is something that can be adapted pretty easily. Obviously, a major musical, we're not going to do Oklahoma over Zoom, but something like a radio play or something that's a small cast. I think we can certainly do that, and of course, then we get into licensing things with being able to stream it. And but the licensing companies realize that we're all in this pinch, and they've been really great about trying to offer streaming rights to theaters.
About I was talking with my daughter who's in middle school. She was looking forward to going back to school to start plays, but then came to the realization that that's probably not going to happen. That's probably not an activity they're going to be able to allow at school again. Would there then be some kind of opportunity, do you think, for younger generations with the community theater still, or?
That's something we've talked about, and of course, when we do shows, we try to look to offer productions that include children a lot. That hasn't always been the case, but we've been pretty strategic in making sure that at least one of our shows each season involves children. We have our children's camps in the summer for a couple of weeks, and they usually put on a production, and we had hoped to continue those, but then we ended up making the call just to cancel those, unfortunately, this summer. So yeah, if there's something that if we end up choosing to do this, absolutely, we're always looking to get the younger generations involved, because that's how we continue to find volunteers.
What kind of needs do you have right now? Or is there anything particular that you need from the greater Wabash Valley community? Or?
So yeah, we're trying to continue to make progress. I mean, it looks, if you drive by our building right now, it looks pretty bleak. I mean, there's nobody in the parking lot and there's nobody rehearsing, but we've been very busy throughout all of this, the board and the volunteer organization, in taking this time and using it productively, to make some building improvements, to get some organizational things done as far as the board. We're currently looking at several building improvements. One of them is a upgrade to our lighting system. It's the dimmers that control all of our lights are from the late 70s, and we've been using them since we got them. So we're looking at doing an upgrade of those, and that's about $100,000 project that we're doing. So fortunately, since we are all volunteer, we're not having to make payroll. So we do have, we're not, as far as finances, not as desperate as some arts organizations. But yeah, we run on operating revenue, and we have none of that coming in. Fortunately, we've had grants from the Indiana Arts Commission, and through the federal act, we had some emergency funding, but right now we're operating on donor support, and our donors have been they've stepped up to the plate and helped us, but we need that continued support to keep making these improvements. But yeah, we're working on that and some other building improvements. So when we are able to resume, we're hoping that the shows will be better than ever.
Do any of you, our attendees, have questions that you want? Rebecca can share them if you either raise your hand. There should be a little button for you to do that. And also you could type in a question in your chat. Let me just remind you of that if you wish to do that as well, okay? I don't want to cut anybody off from having their question answered. I wonder thing that came up in other coffee talks we've had, AJ, is when a lot of our prospects are kind of stuck at home and they're starting to go through closets and drawers and things and downsizing. And we've talked in the past about how, you know, people might have period piece clothing and such. And does the theater still need donations and things like that? And if they do, you know, how do we handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. Need is a fluctuating term as far as costumes. We have a very vast inventory, but my costume director would probably yell at me if I said, no, we don't need anything. They will always take something. They will screen through it, and if it's something we need, they'll keep it. If not, then they'll usually pass it on to a local like Goodwill or something like that. So absolutely, if there's anything, whether it's costumes or, you know, a furniture piece or something like that, you can reach out to us and let us know, and we'll let you. We'll at least say yes, we would love that, or no, we've got plenty of sofas or whatever it is. You can always reach out to volunteer@ctth.org, and then somebody will get that to the right person. Or you can always give us a call at 812-239-9487. That's our board secretary, and she'll route that to anybody.
We actually have a couple of questions. It looks like Alan, you should be able to talk. You raised your hand.
Okay, it's much comment and question about the same thing. I have to really give Kate and Rebecca a lot of credit for creating this series. We live in Paris, and while that's really not very far from Terre Haute, the time differences and lifestyles mean we have not been able to enjoy the arts from here, partially because of busy schedules and all. So this series is really neat. And I was just wanting to refocus a little bit. Why couldn't you, we're downsizing. We're bringing 20% of the stuff with us, and the other stuff has to disappear. And we do that through auctions and beg our to take some and others. Why couldn't you publish a list of types of props that you'd be interested in? Because we have no idea what you have. We don't know what kind of programs you've done. You don't know what we have. So the idea of getting a kind of a suggestion, you know, one of the things that and this is as much for the other two ladies there, one of the things that the Indianapolis Business Journal does each year, towards the end of the year, because that's when they push the contributions and all, they go to all the nonprofits and say, what do you need? And you know, for instance, we're going to have 2 big lateral file cabinets that are going to be available. Now, that's not normally what you would think of as props, but it may be something for storage of costumes, or you may need it in the office that you have there. So, and these are brand new. Well, they've been used by us, but they've been temperature controlled storage for us, and we may get into them once a year, or we may get in every month, depending upon what we're doing with the files. They have a lot of genealogical stuff and other things that we're going to be carrying out. So if you could provide some guidance, it could make it much quicker. And I wouldn't ask for this necessarily, but would you pick stuff up like that, or you want it delivered to a place? And what are your operating hours? I know you got volunteers, and they're not there because they're out riding silver someplace else with a silver bullet to take care of something with their masked friends. So is that a possibility?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that. I was just talking last week with our fundraising committee about different options, and one of the ideas was putting a wish list on our website of things that we need. As far as pickup and that, it depends on what it is. If we can get a truck and get people to do it if we need it badly, sure, we would absolutely pick it up. And like you said, since we are all volunteer, we're not there during the day. There's no staffing, but typically we can get some people there if we can arrange a time for somebody to meet at the theater. It's funny you said filing cabinets, because I just bought 3 at an auction for the theater last week and picked them up.
My price would have been better.
Yeah, I can imagine. See, so yeah, that whole idea of getting a list, and maybe that's something that can be beyond community theater. That I don't know if we work with the chamber or somebody that can get a list of all the nonprofits in the area and see what they need. Because I know we're not the only ones. There's certainly others that have needs like that.
Well, for instance, I have it's now just at the end of its warranty period, but we decided 2 years ago to no longer have a landline phone system. But we live in a facility, and my wife had some medical conditions, that I have a 13 unit PBX in the house with intercom and voicemail and stuff. We're just not using anymore. I've tried to find a charity to give it to. I'm not so much interested in you really don't get much out of a contribution on your tax. I mean, it's your incremental tax rate times the value of it, and that's always suspect. We're after finding somebody to use equipment that still is. I mean, I've got 3 brand new phones that are digital phones that we can't use and can't seem to find somebody who would like to have them. And I've been at a loss. I obviously talked to the people who installed it, and they want to sell new ones. But I said, you got to have some nonprofits to make a big hit with if you could deliver a system and it's functional and all. So I think there are some opportunities there for the nonprofit business, particularly with the folks like us who are downsizing and making a transition. So you can just think about that, and maybe there's something for both of us in there. We solve the problem that we no longer have it, and you have the opportunity to acquire it at a very reasonable cost under those reasons.
Yeah.
Basis.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a need within the community, and I think if we can find a way to all come together and collaborate to find a way to make a list, so then people aren't having to ask because there's a lot of nonprofits in the area. That's a lot of people to ask if you need something.
There are a lot of businesses who claim they're profitable, but they're now nonprofits because of what's going on.
Yeah.
There's another thought I have that, and I hope I'm not premature on this, but the village is considering adding another resident activity with a woodworking shop. And so that could mean we could have some volunteers making some props or making some stuff for your sets and all. Do you think there's a need or an interest in something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's often times that we need a specialty prop or a piece of furniture or something like that. Yeah, that would be awesome.
We're going to have a CNC, if it all works out, we're going to have a CNC router that can do, it's 5-axis, and so it does turnings, and you know, we make furniture on it now. So we don't have the room to be a production type of facility, but you know, there could be some things that all you can do is ask, and all we could say is, yeah, we can do it or we can't do it, you know.
Sure, yeah.
And we have a couple of other, I know Cynthia asked, how do you select what shows will be performed, and how do you ever reuse a public favorite? And we actually even have a Q&A, which this is the first time I've seen one of these. It's an anonymous attendee. And it seems like this is more of a comment toward Alan and AJ's answering. So I'll start with this one. United Way has a method through which they identify volunteers for various organizations. they might be willing to work with local nonprofits to put something on their website that would identify needs in terms of office furniture, etc., that nonprofits have, as well as what they already do to match volunteers with organizational needs.
Okay, that's a good point.
So that's something to keep in mind, but I know Cynthia's, how do you select which shows are performed? Do you ever reuse a public favorite? How does that all work?
Sure, yeah. So I recently just ended my term as the drama committee chair, which oversees all the play selection. So that's what I did for 4 years, that oversaw all the artistic decisions of the theater. So we have, it's a pretty involved process for us picking shows. We have 3 committees. So we have a main stage play reading committee, an Oakley play reading committee, and then a musical committee. So those 3 committees, it's usually right now they've actually started the process for next season. They go out and read plays, and they take suggestions. We take any suggestions we get from the public, from volunteers, and then whatever ideas they might have themselves. And they get scripts, they read them, they discuss them as a committee, and from that, each of those committees submits a list of anywhere from 9 to 20 plays. So then we take all 3 of those lists after they've talked it out and they've whittled it down to their best whatever. Then those 3 lists get put into one in a completely different committee, the play selection committee, which is comprised of various board members and people across the theater, from our marketing people to our sales chair to the production chair or volunteers chair. A big group of people gets together and then looks at that list and puts together a season that's a variety, and usually includes 2 musicals and then smaller and bigger and different size plays, and a good mix of comedy, drama, mystery, things like that. As far as reusing a public favorite, we have a lot of our shows we've done in the past. The policy we have is that we don't repeat a play for 15 years. We don't repeat a musical for 20 years. That way, that kind of forces us, because there's a lot of shows that we would love to do over and over and over and do them frequently. We do that. That way, we're ensuring that we're always producing new art and looking at new plays that are published, because there's a lot of playwrights out there that deserve to be performed, and we need to make sure we're committed to new works. We've done local playwrights. We've done workshops with local people that have written a play and need it performed, to see where the strengths and weaknesses are in the script, and work with a director, and so we can give them feedback and really feed that process.
I had myself muted. That's a really good question too. And that, I mean, it sounds like you have a lot of people involved with all the various committees and your board members. I mean, how have you ever done a total head count? Like, how many kind of continuous involvement individuals do you have?
Yeah, we're actually looking at implementing a new volunteer tracking system so we can track our volunteers better. As far as the committee work, our board alone is 30 people. So that's our board of directors. And then the committees, like the play reading committees, are mostly non-board members. They're volunteers that want to get involved and do stuff. And most of our standing committees on the board are open to the volunteer base as well. It's a large group. It's hundreds of people that make that place run. It's nothing that a small group of people could do. We are reliant on everybody to make that. Everybody plays like that. That's our motto. Everybody plays a part. But it's a big operation, especially with no paid staff. So I always say that the board is 1/30 of the executive director, and we all do a little bit of the work and then go back to our full-time jobs. It's a big job.
It is a lot, and that's a lot to pull together and to coordinate that many people, in one direction and pull together in one effort. I see some more questions. Rebecca, do you want to share?
Yes. So Cynthia, I've got 2 questions for you. Cynthia first asks, given the time needed to come to a final play selection, how much time in months is needed to come to that decision?
So it's typically about a 9-month process as far as usually we start in January with the reading process, and the committees get together on their own and find scripts and order scripts and look at shows, and that's where the meat of the work is. For probably 5 months, they're going through scripts and saying yes and no, and I like this and I don't like this, and this is why it would be good. And then that comes back together for the play selection. So then we meet usually in July. Around this time is usually when we're picking the shows for next season, and then it goes to the board in August or September. So it's a long process. And it's not that, the committees are meeting every week and all this. A lot of the work is done by the volunteers at home, just simply reading the scripts, and a lot of it's done. We have an online form where people that are serving on the committee, they can read the play, they can go on and they rate it. I thought it was very strong or whatever, and it's different areas, and they can do all the work from there. So that's why we open that up to anybody on here that would like to help read plays. Absolutely reach out to us. Because that's how we get a variety of opinions and produce a variety of works. Obviously, if it was just me picking shows, I have my opinions, and we would do shows that AJ likes, not that the community likes. So that's what's really important, that we have a lot of people involved in that process, and that's really how we come to a good mix of shows.
Well, the next question, actually, I've got a couple more now. Samantha Johnson Holmes actually commented, hello, AJ, it's nice to meet you. Looking forward to meeting you in person in the future. Have you guys discussed policies you might require audiences and actors to follow if you do resume in-person performances after September? This is something the symphony is starting to discuss. How we can protect our musicians and audience during live performances.
First off, good to meet you too. Congratulations on your new position. Yeah, we have talked about that for months, and we have a plan in place as far as the patrons. We've talked about requiring masks at all performances. We talked about only doing pre-sale tickets, not offering tickets at the door. That way, we would shut tickets off probably the day before the performance and limit it to a certain number. And that way we could map out where people sit, so they're distant, so families that buy tickets that are already in the same household could sit together safely, but then we would spread them out from other people. We've talked about discontinuing programs, so we don't have passing of programs. We've talked about discontinuing concessions in our bar service, increased cleanings, of course. We were talking after every performance, having somebody come in and deep clean all the armrests and the seats and the bathrooms and all of that. Something that was really telling and helped us guide our decision was we sent out a survey to our patrons and volunteers, and it asked whether you were a volunteer, whether you're a patron, and then it guided you to a couple of different questions. But it was gauging their comfort level of different precautions, including masks, temperature screenings at the door, pre-sales, limiting audiences, all of those different things. And that really showed us, one, that we have pretty wide support for extra precautions being taken, but a lot of people were telling us that they just weren't comfortable coming back yet. And that helped us make our decision. A lot of people said they would be comfortable maybe later in the fall. I think something like 20% said they wouldn't be comfortable until there's a vaccine or that this has been eliminated. So, of course, our first decision is safety. That's always going to be our first thing in mind. But we do have to make a call at some point that if people aren't willing to come back, we're still paying the same prices for royalties and paying the same prices to build a set and all of that, and that it does have to be profitable for us to put on a show. We are a nonprofit, but we don't want to lose more money in this situation where we're already struggling. So yeah, we have a long plan of precautions that if we can find a way to rehearse a show, and it's the same thing with with musicians, I mean, they're dealing with the same thing that actors are. If we can find a way for them to stay safe during rehearsals, we've got a pretty strong plan for keeping the patrons safe if we are able to resume performances.
Cynthia Wheaton actually sent in another question. And how would an individual submit a suggestion? She said that they are big fans of Radio Classic Radio, in particular Jane Ace and Easy Aces and Johnny Dollar. Thanks.
First off, those suggestions I will go ahead and pass on, so you don't have to. Anytime that you have a suggestion, you can always email it to drama@ctth.org, or if you just go on our website, there should be an email there that you can access, or through our Facebook. Our marketing people are really great on our Facebook page. That's actually where we get the most suggestions. People message us all the time and say, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? And that's, believe it or not, a lot of our shows come from those suggestions. We don't always know when we select them in the end that it was, oh, it's because a patron suggested this. They suggested it, they read it, and it became one of the top contenders. So yeah, absolutely. If you ever have ideas, reach out to us in one of those ways.
Did we cover everyone's question?
Yes, Samantha says thank you as well.
Very good. I heard you say too in the beginning, AJ, that you teach, is that right, at St. Mary of the Woods?
I serve as the technical director and production manager there. So I manage the auditorium facility. So I do theater full-time away from the theater. So I manage the auditorium facilities and oversee the technical aspects of our student productions.
Gotcha, I understand. Okay. Do you have then a fair amount of students from the universities around that volunteer with the organization?
We try to. It's always dependent on the it seems like college students are more and more busy today than ever. But yeah, we get a good amount of students, even from the high schools, that get involved. Especially, it depends on the show. When we did Mamma Mia last year, I think over half the cast was either high school or college students. And we're always looking for younger people to get involved that way. There's a lot of shows that we'd love to do that are geared that way, but we're just not sure if we have enough involvement. But yeah.
I was interested in the awards ceremony that you said you put on recently out at the park. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we've been doing awards for 65 plus years, I think. I'd have to go back and look. And typically it's done at the theater, and there's a big show, and there's musical numbers, and theater people can't do anything halfway. So this year was not that. We just got together, and a couple of board members presented all of the awards for the 4 shows that did present. So the way that works is we actually have a panel of judges that are just people in the community. They're just random people that some of us know. They're not people with theater experience most times. They just are either patrons or community leaders that we know, and they come in and they just give their opinion on the show and on the actors. So there's this whole process. They have a form and all these scoring details that they evaluate each of the performers that have been nominated. So the director nominates each of the roles before we've even cast the show in different categories, either leading or supporting. And then once it's cast, then we give it to the judges. They come and see a show, and they submit their opinion. And it's a secret panel until the very end. And then at the end, we give awards to the actors, to the set, for the best overall production of the year. There are some honorary awards we give. So it was different this year. It was the fastest one that I can recall. I think it was 35 minutes we got through it when you don't have any musical numbers. But yeah, it was nice just to get together and recognize those people that were able to perform last season. We kind of focus on the 3 shows that we had to cancel, but we did get 4 of them in, and we gave those awards. And it was nice doing it outside, and it was kind of sketchy. It was supposed to rain that day, and it actually did rain quite a bit right before. But by 8 o'clock we were clear, and it was really great.
Oh, that's really neat. I love that idea of being able to get together and celebrate each other, even though everybody was sort of I'm sure in the dumps that the whole season, the rest of the season had to be canceled and everything. So
yeah, it was a good process, I think, for all of us.
yeah. Well, we're very hopeful for you and all the organizations, you know, that in the symphony as well, that we'll be able to get back to it soon. You know, I hope that we can make those September dates. And, you know, I know a lot of festivals and fairs and things have been canceled, which is a disappointment. And I'm sure that whenever we can open up again, I mean, I would think that it's going to be hugely popular. You know, everybody is going to be itching and ready to get back out. Not everybody, but enough to fill the half capacity seats, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, well, like I said, we're ready to reopen. We just want to make sure we're keeping everybody safe. And yeah, once we think it's safe, we're going to be rearing to go. So, and we're ready to welcome everybody back.
Yeah. We learned a lot. I learned a lot today about the community theater. I mean, I drive past there all the time and have looked into it and things, of course, for my daughter. And I so appreciate you sharing more information about how the inner workings, you know, what your plans are and your challenges. I love that we can help in some way, you know, with some props and things, and hopefully we can get that list pulled together. And yeah, maybe I think that the United Way was a great suggestion. I think people kind of know to go there for profit, you know, for support and things. So maybe that is the best venue to and location to put that up, or on our Facebook pages. You know, those, like you said, you get a lot of comments from there, and there a lot of people on Facebook and find it easy, I think, to find information there. So that's a great suggestion as well. And thank you. Unless we have other questions, thank you to all of our guests for joining us today. So happy to have you all here and supporting. Next Saturday, we have Mary Cramer joining us. Mary Cramer is the executive director of Wabash Valley Art Spaces, and can give us an update on the project that's going on down by the river as well. And again, congratulations on your position at the theater. Keep doing what you do. I mean, my goodness, with all the volunteers you have, it's, you know, you're doing something right. That's for sure.
Thanks.
That's awesome. We hope to see you there at the theater soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cynthia says, this has been fantastic. Thank you, one and all. Blessings.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Thank you.